Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day, and today we're going to be talking about what the Houston Texans need to do in free agency as free agency opens up today. I swear, right before I started recording this, it was announced that the Texans signed Sheldon Rankins, and he was one of the guys on my list. I was, preparing for this video and getting the guys that I thought, were guys I really want the Texans to sign. And Sheldon Rankins was one of those guys. And he's not going to be talked about in this video because good thing the Texans have already done what I wanted for at least one of the things I wanted. Which I think that's maybe what some Texans other Texans fans wanted too, because Sheldon Rankins was great for this Texans defense a couple of seasons ago, 2023, when the Texans went back to the playoffs for the first time. For the first time since the 2019 season, 2019-20 season, since, it was the 2019 season, but it was 2020 when they were in the playoffs, and he had 6 sacks that year. He had a fumble recovery touchdown, and he was great that season. And so, but yeah, I'm glad he's back. But we're going to go over some names that I want the Texans to bring in this offseason. All right. I got a couple San Francisco guys in here, but the first guy I want to go over is because we're going to continue with the defensive tackle position, because it was reported the Texans are not expected to re-sign Foley Futukasi and also Mario Edwards Jr. So that being said, brought in Sheldon Rankins. You got one more spot at the defensive tackle. Why not make it 2 reunions? Malik Collins just got released by the 49ers. His contract, a big reason why the Texans wanted to trade him in the first place, is gone now. So go back and bring him back. 17 games, 17 starts this year, 2 fumble recoveries, 5 sacks, 33 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 12 QB hits. It's arguable this season that this season Malik Collins was just as good as he was last season with the Texans defense. I mean, he played only one more game this season that he did last year. Last year he did have 1 pass defense with the Texans defense. He didn't have any this year, but 2 fumble recoveries is something he did not do last season. And I feel like maybe that's something he could do next season. Now that you got a guy, you got 2 guys like Danielle Hunter, and you got Will Anderson, who's way better than he was in his rookie year now. And there could be more opportunities for Malik Collins to get fumble recoveries in Houston. I mean, he played 3 seasons in Houston. He only had 1 fumble recovery. So maybe if he returned to Houston, maybe he'd be able to get some more fumble recoveries. But had 5 sacks, was exactly what he had in his last year in Houston. Had 5 tackles for loss. Really, the only thing that was significantly worse for Collins this year than compared to his 2023 season with the Texans was his QB hits. Went from 18 to 12, which when you're playing next to a guy like Nick Bosa, some of the other guys the 49ers have, of course your QB hits are going to go down. But I'd love to see the Texans re-sign Malik Collins, and you got Collins and Rankins back. All right, moving on. I got another San Francisco guy. And this would be another reunion. I mean, he hasn't played for the Texans, but this would be a reunion for DeMeco Ryans. Tre'Davious Ward, I would love the Houston Texans to bring him in. Texans really need a corner. I mean, you got Stingley, of course. Jeff Okudah's a free agent. Not a big fan of Jeff Okudah in the first place. You really need a corner. You have Kamari Lassiter, and he's really solid. But I'd love to see the Houston Texans bring in Tre'Davious Ward, and reunite Ward and DeMeco Ryans. I don't think that he's going to go back to San Francisco. I really don't. Unfortunately, I hate to obviously we know he lost his daughter, and that's really tough to go through. And he talked about how I don't know. Honestly, I'm sorry. I don't know if it's his girlfriend or his wife, but the mother of his daughter does not want to be in San Francisco, and I think she's already moved away, and she does not want to be in San Francisco because, of course, that brings terrible memories. Parents aren't supposed to bury their children. That's not something that's supposed to happen in life. I think that's the biggest fear for any parent. But so, you know, that makes Ward potentially want to leave Philadelphia. Makes him potentially want to leave San Francisco. And I think Ward going to free agency, I think his top two destinations are probably going to be either joining the Texans, where his former defensive coordinator is, or joining the Eagles, who's one of the top teams in the league. And you got Darius Slay and James Bradbury recently just released. So that's a good fit for either situations are a good fit for him, if you ask me. But Kamari Lassiter, I know he's a big part of the future, and I love Kamari Lassiter. I really like Travarius Ward, and I think he'd be a great addition for this team. But we'll see. I mean, I think it's unlikely to happen because of Kamari Lassiter, but I'd love to see them pair Travarius Ward next to Derek Stingley Jr. But maybe it's unlikely. And then I think one of the biggest team needs for this Texans team is at the offensive line. One of the top guards available this offseason in free agency is James Daniels. And he's coming off a really terrible injury, which I definitely can be a big question on signing him. But look, I want the Texans to improve this offensive line. I'm a little bit judgmental when it comes to them improving this offensive line, when it comes to improving it through the draft, because that has not worked out. Look at Kenyon Green. The Texans have not been very successful when it comes to drafting offensive linemen, and so Kenyon Green, that's all. That explains itself. And you want to go to, I really like Juice Scruggs, but I'm not trying to brag at all, but I've met Juice because I live in the same apartment building as him. So, and he's a really cool dude. Just the Texans with their offensive line draft picks have just not been able to pan out and really been unsuccessful with drafting offensive linemen so far. Their most successful offensive lineman pick is Titus Howard, and he's had his injury issues and he's had some problems here and there. So I'd like to see the Texans go through the veteran route at this point, and they just got rid of Shaq Mason. They just released him. That was the right decision because Shaq Mason was horrendous this past year for the offensive line. But, James Daniels is a guy that you can put in. James Daniels is a guy that you can put in at right guard, and he can be the Shaq Mason replacement, and that's why I was considering him as a potential Houston Texan. I don't know. It's probably unlikely because he's coming off a terrible injury. It's not something you want to bring in to improve an offensive line that caused C.J. Stroud to get attacked last year. But I know he would be an improvement compared to what Shaq Mason was doing last year at right guard, even if he's coming off a torn Achilles. And I know the Texans need to improve that right guard position. I'd rather look if the Texans are going to try to improve a position in the offensive line in the draft. I'd rather see the Texans focus on their right tackle issue in the draft and not their right guard issue. So go get a right guard in free agency like James Daniels, and then in the draft go get a right tackle. So that's what I'd like to see. And then one of the final things I'm going to go over for this Texans team is wide receiver. You got Christian Kirk. You got Nico Collins. Stephon Diggs, it's been reported, is not going to return to Houston. So two guys I'd keep my eye on if you're the Texans. First guy is Darius Slayton. Last year had 600 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns for the Giants. I think he'd be a good fit for C.J. Stroud. But also I think the more likely fit, who's a good fit with C.J. Stroud, but also very familiar with the new Houston Texans offensive coordinator Nick Caley, is Demarcus Robinson. Demarcus Robinson last year in the Rams offense had 505 receiving yards and 7 receiving touchdowns playing next to Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Now, they just signed Devontae Adams. They just re-signed Tutu Atwell. They have Puka. Cooper Kupp's about to get traded, who knows where, or released and signed, who knows where. It doesn't seem like Demarcus Robinson is returning to LA. I think if you're Demarcus Robinson, being familiar with Nick Caley, knowing CJ Stroud's a really talented quarterback, knowing they need a wide receiver 3 to pair next to Kirk and Collins, knowing Dell's going to be out for the year most likely, it'd be nice to have. I think it'd be a nice destination for a wide receiver, and there is definitely some familiar relationship with Robinson and new OC Nick Caley. So let me know your thoughts on some of the free agents I'd like to see the Texans bring in. Also, wait, one last quick thing. I want to see the Houston Texans sign a quarterback 3 this offseason. Case Keenum's a free agent, and honestly, I don't know if Case Keenum's going to play football again. I think he might retire after his season-ending injury last year. And I love C.J. Stroud. I love Davis Mills and the 2 quarterbacks the Texans have in this quarterback room. But the NFL made this rule where you can have this 3rd quarterback on the roster, and the Texans did it the first year it was available, and we saw them stop doing it last season because Case Keenum got injured, and they never had a 3rd quarterback on the roster because Case got injured, and you got to take advantage of that. Like, if CJ goes down, like, I hate to talk about this, it frightens me to talk about it, but if CJ Stroud were to go down and Davis Mills comes in and replace him in the game and he goes down, what do? Like, that's what happened in the NFC Championship game for the 49ers is exactly why this happened. For instance, I don't know, you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section if you guys remember this game. But I do remember this game because I was at it. And this was a Texans game. It was Christmas Day against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was a crappy season for the Texans. It was Watson's rookie year towards ACL. T.J. Yates was at quarterback. T.J. Yates got hurt. I can't remember if it was a shoulder injury or concussion. I think it was a shoulder injury for T.J. Yates. So they bring in Taylor Heineke. Yes, Taylor Heineke was a Houston Texan. And he was undrafted, I think. Something like that. And he comes in, and he doesn't play very long, and he gets injured, and I believe it was a concussion for Heineke. So then they have to bring in T.J. Yates back into the game, even though he's injured, and he has to play the rest of the game. I think at one point they thought about potentially bringing in Texans punter Shane Leckler in as quarterback. That game that the Texans had in 2017, that should have been the change of the rule there. But then the NFC Championship game with the 49ers and Eagles is what pushed the NFL to make a rule. You got to take advantage of that. And for instance, like when the Texans played the Titans in Week 18, and the Texans played it like a preseason game where C.J. Stroud and the starters play one series, scored a touchdown, they came out of the game against the Titans, and Davis Mills comes out there. What do you do if Davis Mills gets injured? Obviously, it's not a situation where like C.J. can't go out on the field because C.J. would be healthy, but you don't want C.J. to go out there. In that situation, I think C.J. would have to go back out there because, the 3rd quarterback can only come in if the first 2 get injured. So I guess in that situation, C.J. would have to come back out there. But still, it's, 2 quarterbacks can get injured. It's happened to the Texans before. In 2017, on Christmas, it happened with the 49ers a couple years ago. So a couple guys that I think are quarterback 3 watches are like, a guy like Kyle Allen, who's a former Texan, or a guy like, Nick Mullins, who's a solid QB. I'd look at guys like that are, QB 3 types. There are not a lot of guys that I saw in the free agent quarterback world that are not going to sign not going to sign somewhere as backups or starters. And some of the guys I saw that are you can sign some place and be a QB3 or like Kyle Allen and Nick Mullins. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section and peace out. Go Texans.